The complete opposite of the usual Pacers game. The Pacers aren't very good for about 40 minutes and are great down the stretch and close it out with a tight win over the Bulls. What did they figure out? How did they get it done? Why do wins feel a little weird, especially with this many minutes? We have a lot to get to, and we'll talk some Giannis on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Thursday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and Circle City Spin, and today the Pacers have won. They beat the Bulls. What a comeback for the Pacers to get this one done. They were really struggling for a lot of this game. They couldn't finish in the paint. They were over-relying on threes. They couldn't stop the Bulls until they did quite a bit late in this game to get it done. We got to talk about how they came back, what went so wrong early in the game. The biggest question after the game, what's up with these minutes? Wins feeling hollow for some fans. We'll talk some Giannis, Tony Bradley, his 10-day expiring after this game. Will he be back? Will he not? And so much more from an eventful day in Gainbridge Fieldhouse. And I'll be honest, this one did not feel like it was going to go this way for the Pacers to me. In fact, if you think about most Pacers games this season, the formula has been play well for 35 to 40 minutes for the Pacers, be awful for the other 8, and lose because that 8-minute stretch was so awful. This game, the exact opposite. They were absolutely awesome for the final 8 minutes of the game and completely awful for the rest of the game. And that was still enough for them to actually win and to emerge over the Bulls with the victory. And it didn't feel like that was going to happen, right? If you watched this game or you were cognizant of what was going on at the start, the Bulls just were running through them. I took my notes off to the side because my laptop is having a dreadful day, having 2 tabs open at once. But the Bulls are really hot early in this game. Modest Buzelis, I almost said his name wrong, was cooking. He had a beautiful dunk. He was getting open shots, knocking them down. Some basic actions for them just seemed so easy. Vucevic, turn here, he's open. This guy does this, he's open. It was so easy. And on the other end, the Pacers, they were fortunate to be making shots because they could not buy a 2-point look. They made 2 twos in the first quarter. It was dreadful. They couldn't finish at the basket. They were seeing contested lanes when they would get in there. At one point in this game, they were 5 for 10 on threes and 1 for 10 on twos. And they didn't even take that many bad twos in this game. 5 of their first 6, obviously, of that coming from deep. Ben Shepherd drives in the paint. He gets in the teeth, and he just has the ugliest finish ever, right? The second quarter, it took the Pacers 80 seconds to make as many 2-pointers as they did in the first. Their volume from 3 and their free throws were the only thing keeping them up in the game. I thought the Bulls were just playing way better, right? And the score said that the whole game. If it weren't for not the Pacers' volume from deep, the Pacers would have been screwed. And then the end of the game comes, and they're down 14 with 7 minutes to go. It feels very over all game long. Chicago has been the better team, but the Pacers have their best guys on the floor. Andrew Nembhard's in the game. Pascal Siakam's in the game. Aaron Nesmith's in the game. Much to the chagrin of many fans. I will talk about that. Jay Huff is on the floor, and Johnny Furphy, who we'll get to, is out there. And the Pacers offense just finally figured it out. And I thought the catalyst to it actually came with the bench. TJ McConnell, of all players, he had a fine game. Right? Statistically, it's not like a ride home about it. TJ McConnell had 8.6 assists, but a lot of his buckets came in the second half, and a lot of them in particular, and by a lot I mean like 2, but still, for him, this is a good amount, came off ball. Him cutting into space, him moving around in the paint to get open. Very trivial, obviously, as a concept, but it didn't feel like the Pacers were having a lot of luck or success doing exactly that for a lot of this game. And it sets up the ending that started to happen because the Bulls, their offense has been the best in the league for the 5 games entering this, like by far, right? They've been rocking it from deep. They're moving the ball really well, but their defense, substandard, right? They really like to load up on the side of the floor with the ball, shrink the floor as much as they can, but they leave open some backside stuff when they do that. If you're really moving the ball or you're really cognizant of your cutting, how high they are up on the floor, how tight they try to get your side of the floor is less important. And so all of a sudden, Jarris Walker just runs to the basket in the back. Pascal Siakam hits him, easy bucket. And so the weak side was just there. And once the Pacers figured that out and how to occupy that space and either make the Bulls think that a cutter was coming or be cognizant that it might be coming and still be defending the way that they like to defend, the Pacers really just shredded them over and over and over late in the game. Andrew Nembhard had 4 assists when he entered the game in the fourth quarter. He finished with 9. Right? They really figured out where the holes in this Bulls defense were just in time to actually win the basketball game. And late, if you just go through the box score or the play-by-play and look at all the baskets for the Pacers from the time they were down 14 to the end of the game, you will see a very familiar theme of actually who was doing this. It was Siakam, it was Nembhard, and it was Nesmith. The Nembhard-Siakam combo, they weren't like screening for each other all the time, but they were both involved in almost every action for the Pacers, and that kept netting good shots, either from Nembhard setting it up for somebody else or Siakam finishing it himself, just generally decent to good ball movement, forcing the Bulls to defend, and they couldn't stop it, and they couldn't miss in crunch time. They just could not miss. Jarris Walker was on the floor for some of that, not all of it. He goes 6 for 8 in this game. Siakam was struggling. He gets him going late, and he was getting to the foul line where he actually made them. Andrew Nembhard finally made some shots late. Aaron Nesmith made 2-pointers. Jay Huff hit a huge 3 that rattled in and then out and then back in. Somehow the basketball gods pushed that one through the net, and all of a sudden, the feedback loop thing starts happening, right? I keep mentioning this, and I've mentioned it so much that I feel like I'm using it as a crutch and being lazy, but Rick Carlisle mentioned it this time after the game. And that part of what got their offense going was their defense, as is life for the Pacers, in that they could not make twos at all early in the game to open up the floor. They needed those. Even if you get a transition advantage and you don't actually score from it, the team that had to get back, their matchups aren't what they want, or they can't set up something funky, right? They have to think about the coverages or what they do if they're defending this instead of that. And it just opens up a lot. And so what happened for the Pacers is throughout the game, their offense got a little better as they made shots they're capable of. But as their defense really got going, it really spiraled both ways, where it was get a stop, so it's easier to score, then they could score, so they could set their defense to get a stop. And it just kept going and going and going. Their late game defense was very spirited, and that really opened up their offense for all these players that I'm talking about to push in transition, to push into gaps that the Bulls were leaving behind the play. And they just kept punishing it with baskets in crunch time. So big ups to the Pacers for finding those answers, because they looked really, really poor early in the game. And those guys all figured it out. Like, very frustrating night for a lot of them. And they even acknowledged that postgame. Frustrations with officials, frustrations with their own ability to actually make shots. And in the end, it works out that the balance and finding these cuts were available. The balance was huge for the Pacers in this game. 16 for Walker, 20 for Siakam, 14 for Nesmith, 18 for Nembhard, 10 for Huff, 15 for Mathurin. That's how this team can win right now, is with that level of ball movement and decisiveness. And that is what they got done late in this game. And perhaps the most memorable play for me from this game is going to be the one that kind of sealed it. So the Pacers go up 2, and Vucevic takes a 3. Vucevic was awesome in this game. Him and Jalen Smith were both hitting a ton of threes. Those combined for 6. Half the Bulls made 3 in this game, and the Pacers take a 2-point lead in the final minute, and Vooch pops out 3, and he misses. It's way off, except it wasn't. It was so far left that it banged in, and the Bulls led in the final 30 seconds. And so 2 things happened in those 2 plays. One is Aaron Nesmith, who has clear, like, glass clutch genes he showed in the playoffs, has missed 2 potential game winners this season, one against the Mavs, and I can't remember, the way too far 3. This time, with 14 seconds to go, he catches it on the right. He realizes he's matchup advantage and just takes his man to the cup and scores a reverse layup. Really nice move from him, showing the value of all that work he's put in on his drives. But that wasn't the play that is memorable to me. The one that will is the Pacers have to defend now. The Bulls take a timeout. Kobe White gets the ball. He sides up, and it's Johnny Furphy. And Johnny Furphy has defended better players than Kobe White and has done better things on defense than get a stop like this. However, in this kind of moment where a stop is needed to win the game, very memorable, very high-profile situation. It's Furphy. He sticks with Kobe White the whole way on the drive. He's right on his hip basket, and that gives enough time and slows down the play enough for Aaron Nesmith to come over and block the shot. And then Furphy gets the rebound and gets fouled, and he has to ice the game when they're up 1. Makes both throws. His only points of the whole game. He makes both free throws. The Bulls don't need a shot up, and the Pacers win by 3. So the best guys, Nesmith with a shot, Nembhard and Siakam just generally barbecuing the Bulls, were all great. Down the stretch, hit a big 3, and then Johnny Furphy's most memorable, I think, play. And this small ball, but they win with this combo again. They're just adventuring more into it. They're finding a lot out of it, and they get a lot out of it late to get over the Bulls, overcome a 14-point deficit, 14-4 run to close it, to get a win. And yet, a lot of asking me after the game, that's a lot of minutes for those players. Is that too much? Kind of weird. On to some people. I don't want to touch on that part. Well, I will. and a lot of notebook to get to before we touch on Giannis and Tony Brown. It's all coming here on Locked On Pacers. But first, everybody, let's talk about TurboTax. Tax does not have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on to your day. TurboTax full service. You can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert. Start this without the stress or the guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work. Get you every action. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get the updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver. It's a real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. So for a limited time, you can have your taxes done local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't help you file last year, just file February 28th. Take taxes off your plate. Get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment. We are back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making this your first listen today. Every single second listen, Locked On Bulls. The other side of this, the loser's perspective, a good Boozella game. Bulls are destined for the 13th pick in the plan. I love it. It's the only thing stable my entire life. The most common question I got post-game. They're playing the Bulls. Pacers entered the worst record. Now they're tied with 3 teams with 12 wins. And you look at the box after the game and a comeback win. And it's Pascal Siakam, 36, 34 for 34-ish, a little under that for Nemhard. Should these guys be playing this much? They're playing a lot of games a lot of late. And the answer to that is no. There's not even a debate of this. And I can prove it because I got asked this question in November. If y'all have been listening all season, before the Pacers, or when they were out on their road out west, they just got shellacked every night, that before Siakam rested against Golden State, they asked me this, is Siakam playing too much? And I said, yes, undeniably, right? He needs to have his body ready for next year. Chance of injury to him is not worth it. They can't shut him down yet. They can. He's pushing for All-Star. Clearly, they're pushing him for All-Star. He's playing very well. I don't think, fans deserve to see him play if they want to see him play. But should he be 30 minutes? No. I don't think he should be. Now, it's hard to say that, like, with they're down 14, and they clearly put Siakam back on the floor for crunch time because they thought to win the game. And what? They were right. They did win the game, right? They're clearly making the decision with win in mind. And that can be and should be questioned and debated. Now, look, I think, and maybe overrating this, I don't think I am personally, but you never know. There's obvious long-term value in, like what I just said, the Furphy memorable moment, trying him with different front court combos. This game they went small again. It did not work, but Huff was the first guy off the bench. He wasn't in previous games with Small. Tried different front court combos. Huff closes the game, right? Furphy's playing with the guys, right? Okay, they're finding out that this works. That's great for next year. These lineups might play season, are trying to win, and they'll have experience together, right? The question I would have for a lot of people, for anyone who is like, what are they even doing, is if they try something and it works, should they never do it again? Should just never evaluate it again, like by the end of the season, or am I going to be playing? Like, can someone say, yes, they should be. And I get why you're saying that. I don't think anyone's dumb for wanting a certain thing like that. But if they are learning something new that will help their team next year, that has table actual value. The point of young players and assets is to make them good players. They're certainly not with Furphy right now and all sorts of other combos. There is actual value to that, and figure that it works, and it's been working, and it won them this game. Role players were huge down the stretch. Like, if they had role players and won, what are they supposed to do otherwise? So I do understand, and I agree that the best guy playing too much. I don't know when they pull the plug there. Maybe it's post All-Star, especially if Siakam makes it. It's post deadline. Maybe it's March 1st. I don't know, but there are two parts to that question of, is actual value in doing what they're doing, and they're playing their best guys too much. And they're resting guys. There is clear, at least something to that. All right, lots of notebook stuff to get to before we talk some Giannis and Tony Brown. Jarris Walker starts the game, immediately hits a three, or pretty early in the game. He was for 8. This one with 2 threes, 2 free throws. He did not have any other stats. No rebounds, no anything else. But 16 points. He's on a fire heater for him. I don't know why I said fan heater. When it comes to scoring, he had half of the Pacers' first 16 points, got him off on the right foot when the Pacers winning early. And he had a stutter-stepping right side drive where he gets under the basket, moves his defender back by jumping back and knocks him out of the way and goes up for a layup. Power. Look at Jarris go. He's playing quite good, and he scored well in this game. Jay Huff, noteworthy, first sub off the bench. Carlisle pregame, we were asking about the small ball lineups and how he's choosing which center should play. It doesn't seem like Huff, despite him asking that. They are clearly, they are saying that matchup, the name of the game, using who is playing and who isn't. I thought Vooch would be a matchup that J-Huff could do, but there is some spacing to that. Pascal Siakam, post-game, does like the pace of these small groups and the way they play. If they like the way they play and they're learning a lot out of it, yeah, keep doing it. But Huff was at least solid in this game. Like, he struggled with a few things early, right? He didn't have any touch. He wasn't scoring in the paint hardly at all. An ugly trap trying to get to the basket. Vucevic posts him up at one point, just 2 dribbles, easy. He puts him under the scores, right? That's not good. That's not, he's got to be a little more powerful to defend the post, a little more mobile, but he hits 3 2-pointers. He gets a 3 to go. 7 boards is a big night for Huff. He steals. So he contributed defensively. He found his offensive impact in a way that impactful. And I think in a game like this, where the crowd was kind of out of it because the Pacers were down, basically game, his reverse had real in the building kind of stuff. My only note about any other was Micah Potter above the break 3 in all caps. Same thing I've said a lot when he took a bunch of corner threes in OC. It just is way better. I feel the same way about J-Huff when he takes an above the break 3 than a corner 3. He did make his above the break 3. Ben Shepherd, he had some good defensive moments in Atlanta. I feel like his defense has been not as good of late for some reason. He had a really weird angle where he got cooked by Kevin Huerter, fouled him. I don't know what's going on there, but I've been shaky on my Ben Shepherd defense feeling of late. All right, let's talk some Ben Mathurin, who started second half. This is only his second game coming off the bench all season, where Carlisle saying starting matters to him. It's a different thing to Mathurin about that post game if you want to watch the interview of that. And Mathurin overall played, a fine game. He was 4 for 10, but was awesome on the glass. 8 rebounds. He is probably second behind Furphy in terms of the team's best rebounding non-big men. He has been pretty good at just having a nose for the ball. 15 points for him. Some shaky defense for Mathurin. So I have a lot of I don't know what to make when he catches and sizes up at a fair and to move, and then nothing happens, and then he just kind of flips it to somebody who's pretty close to him. He him sizing somebody up, he's good at that. He's good at getting to the rim and making his own shot. But in the situation, he just did nothing. All he did is chew shot clock time. That's a lot of stuff about going quicker that everybody always talks about with him, because if you get to the rim, you should do it. But that pause, the lack of anything happening for a second, and then when you don't get any, which really hurts. I thought that was kind of odd, but he still played well and made shots. His rebounds were fantastic. He had one great defensive rep on Kobe White really early in the second half. He was being productive at the time. He was providing, he had some huge threes to kind of stabilize the team and tie the game kind of early in the third. And it's lost on a defensive possession where he did his job and then he got put in the paint and the Bulls kicked out, and then he didn't, ever move and close out. He relaxed almost after doing his job. Ended with his hands, a bunch too many fouls, and then he got taken out. And someone asked me why he did. I think it was that he just couldn't quite get the defensive impact he needed. He had 4 fouls in a game that didn't really have that many fouls called. So I don't think Ben Mathurin had a bad night, despite me having more poor notes on than positive. But he had an okay game and continues to be good at the stuff that he's good at. Even on a not scoring game, he has 15 points on 10 shots. That's so Mathurin. He can get to the line. He can make 8 rebounds, but the defense needs to be a little bit better. Look, this is my only note. I don't even really know what play this was. I just typed, I remember the dumb stuff you guys saw at Andrew Nemhart. That dude is balling. He is absolutely balling. I think he's third or for the NBA, and it's in the year 2026. 9 in this game, 6 rebounds. He just looks awesome. Every game. He didn't even shoot it that well in this game. Plus 10. And everybody laughed when I said I think his on-off number just luck. Well, hey, they're trending towards not being just luck, and everybody will say, well, that's because he's better. Yeah. He is playing better, but they're also going better because of luck. It's all in his favor. It all is out in the end, as it usually does. He was quite good. I thought it was noteworthy that Jeff and Ben started the second half of this game after not starting the game. This was the first game that Small was very in it. They couldn't stop Buzelis. Vucevic was kind of kicking their butts. And it worked because the offense wasn't good enough. The whole point of it is to score better and move better and be more free. And it wasn't really Siakam couldn't do anything until the fourth quarter of this game. And so I thought that was extremely nutty. Okay, a couple not so great things. One, Giannis kicked the Pacers' butt. So did Vooch. I mean, those two just popped up for open threes. Power in the lane. It was fun to see Sticks and Ijax go against each other after years of them kind of competing for me. Jalen Smith was awesome. He's like an every other year player to me, where the other year he's okay. This year, the on year, he's awesome. 13 and 11 for him. Vooch had 25 and 9. Both gave the Pacers fits. And Ayo Dosunmu, who's a good player, but he is like a defender and shooter. He was just cooking everybody. He would catch, he would get to the basket. He took 12-2, made 8 of them. 19 points for Io. That was a problematic point for the Pacers defense for last game. My other negative thing, I don't even know what the right phrasing is. Just feels like Isaiah Jackson, who early in the season toggled in some nice games, right? I when they were figuring out their center rotation through like mid-December, earlier I said, yeah, I think Huff's playing better, but Isaiah Jackson's had the higher ceiling games. But his floor has been very recently. 2.5 minutes for him, 2 fouls. He comes out. He never plays again. To Potter, who's productive. Jay Huff played a lot. I mean, Isaiah Jackson's got to get off the floor somehow. Feels very similar to the last time he was healthy. I get that he took a year off. I get that it takes a while for these post-release players to feel like themselves again. No doubt. But he's just got to show improvement or something else, because right now other centers are producing more than him and deserve the minutes, and they're not seeing enough, I think, from him. Furphy's stints were short in the second. He came off the bench until he closed the game with Mathurin starting. That's something to keep in mind, kind of figure out who shouldn't be playing. Obviously, Siakam playing a lot is a factor in that as well. Another thing that worked well for the bench in this game that was much better in terms of plus minus and scoring, Nemeth played more with the second units. He was one of the first starters to come out. I thought that worked very well, as they were able to get 4 makes from Huff and Mathurin and McConnell, and then a little bit of chip in from Ben Shepherd and Potter. And that, everyone, is Pacers Bulls, the Pacers' 12th win of the season, and then with 3 teams for the second fewest in the NBA, much to the chagrin of many of you addressed. Giannis. Well, we'll talk about that for him. And Tony Bradley, whose 10-day contract expired after the game, all coming up here to close out today's Locked On Pacers. Before that, we got to talk about Rocket Money. Let's be real. Managing your finances can feel overwhelming. Between subscriptions you forgot, bills that keep going up, and trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month, it's easy. Feel like you're losing control, and who has the time to track every transaction or hunt down hidden fees? That's where Rocket Money comes in. Personal finance app that helps you control. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your so you can grow your savings. You'll be shocked when they show you what you're paying for. You might have completely forgot about it. Track your subscriptions and cancel them right in the app. You don't have to hunt down customer service numbers. They have automatic transaction categorization. Budgets and goals can be set right in the app. Personalized insights. It'll consolidate your checking, savings, investments into dashboards so you get a clear view of your entire financial picture. So Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. One more time, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. And you're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen, obviously, Locked On Bucks. Because, whoa, Giannis may be happy, maybe not. Oh, boy. I don't know what to make of it. The wording of the reporting is very confusing. It feels like Giannis just has never brought up with anyone, but it feels like the Bucks kind of realized they probably should be doing this. Nobody wants to be the bad guy who actually forces it to happen. The Pacers broke the Bucks, right? They beat them 2 years in a row in the playoffs. That team tried to adjust that. Got Miles Turner. That has not worked. They're very bad. They're now 12. Hornets have passed them in the East. Giannis is out for a while. Right, they're toast. They're lucky that it's a worse stuff. The Pelicans are so bad that they can, in theory, take down the rest of the season and help lure of their draft pick. So I don't want to get too into Bucks. I just pining on the Giannis situation a little bit. I wonder now, a lot of the teams that make sense for him, they might have stronger packages in or around draft when they can trade picks. So maybe this makes sense as a summer thing. However, the East is so wide open this with no Tatum, who Chris Haynes reported today might be actually out the whole season. No Haliburton, no et cetera. If that would motivate an East team to want to do it now and get him for potentially playoff runs. If you trade for Giannis this season, you get him for this playoff run, assuming he's healthy, and next year's before his player option kicks in. That's extremely enticing, even for a team you may not want to extend with. So I think that there's a chance. I mean, the reporting is just such gobbledygook wording, and it's just so logical that they would at least explore something. I wouldn't rule out a trade of him. I'm just guessing, of course. But anyway, that's where the situation is. Naturally, people ask me, what about the Pacers, Tony? Giannis makes $54 million this season. You can do the math very quickly. You could do that with Haliburton straight up. I think every fan would not do that. You could do that with Pascal Siakam straight up. The Bucks would do that. And if you trade Pascal plus a lot for Giannis, do the Pacers want to do that? Would the plus be? Who knows? I think the point would be to add Giannis to those two players. So if it's not one of those two players, maybe it would have to be. To get Giannis, it would take like 3 or 4 of the Pacers rotations to make the contract actually work. And did those players have any appeal to the Bucks? Maybe, because they want to be bad. They don't have their picks. It's just a hard trade package to construct without it having Haliburton, Siakam in it. Who knows if the Pacers would actually consider doing such a thing. It would take a lot of contracts to get there. Now, people have asked about in the summer, could they sign and trade Mathurin to do it? Yes, but Mathurin's first-year salary would have to basically be the max, and other players have to be in it still. Would the Bucks want Mathurin at a max contract? So there's just a lot of hurdles that make it quite challenging for the Pacers. Who do have interesting stuff, right? They have recent lottery picks. They have all their own draft picks. They have rotation players. I'm not saying they shouldn't pursue it at all, but it's a hard package to put together. If they think he would help them win a championship or improve their championship equity in the next 3 years when they have great players on their team right now, yes, they should have a meeting about it. They absolutely should. I don't think Giannis will get traded in division. He might get traded in conference, in division. I don't know. I don't see it, but I am just guessing. Will be really interesting. The hopes, and if you're a Pacers fan, obviously your hope should be that he goes west and soon. If he goes to the Spurs or the Rockets or like some people are talking about the Blazers just because they have Bucks picks, whatever it may be, that would obviously be good for the Pacers. They'd less, they wouldn't have to see him in the playoffs. But if you're Giannis, your legacy is improved more in the East, and the East is so wide open this year, as I mentioned earlier. So I'm obviously doing a lot of speculating to relate it to the Pacers. We'll see what happens there, but it's a very, very hard trade for the Pacers to construct in a way that leaves them with a good team after they actually do the trade. If they're not that good after it, their draft picks they would trade away to get him would become much better for the Milwaukee Bucks. So if you're a Pacers fan, you are rooting for the like Warriors, Spurs, Rockets, Thunder, quintet to swoop in and get this done. That's transactional thing number one. Thing number two is Pacers Bulls is over. We're recording this, it's the 29th. It's like 2:15 in the morning. Tony Bradley's contract that he signed on January 19th is over. It expired after Pacers Bulls. He did not play in the game. So he is out of 10 days. He signed 2 10 days, and you can't sign 3 with him. So if the Pacers want to keep Tony Bradley now, they would have to give him a standard contract, and the trade deadline's a week away. I don't know what their planning is. I should have asked more about it. Bradley has not played since the Thunder game. He played for 1 possession to get a rebound in that game. He played 6 minutes against Boston. Was getting real minutes and playing pretty well right before that. He played well against Embiid. He played well in Detroit. So he was productive recently, but with Isaiah Jackson back and healthy, which happened this 10-day, right? That happened, I guess, 1 game before it. They don't need him to play. That's just why he's not playing hardly. My guess would be that I suppose they could look to him back after the trade deadline, depending on how many roster spots they have or what moves they make. But I don't think that they would want to commit to that salary now and fill up their between the luxury tax where they could use that space to potentially acquire a player and get an asset along with them, which I think would be smart of the Pacers to consider. In fact, that's maybe their most likely thing they actually do at the trade deadline. So I'll predict now, and I could just ask because it's the day, but I'll predict that Tony Bradley will not be brought back after this. It's like a harm to add a player on a minimum contract at this point, but he's not playing. Like, he's not adding any value to the team. And I've said at some point, I think they'll get some young guys in on 10 days for a little bit before maybe like early March when they have to figure out their two-way situation. But until then, I think that they will not add anybody to their roster spot until after the trade deadline. And Tony Bradley, if it's over for him with the Pacers, to go from getting a 10 days, they're trying to figure out what center they could have for the playoffs, to playing finals rotation minutes, to then scraping his way into training camp, and then all the point guards suck, so they keep him, and then he was better than Wiseman, so they kept him over Wiseman, and then he lasted all the way until almost February following year. He made it almost 11 months with the Pacers. Impressive run. He kept beating the odds, what it's all about. Good for him. And that is Wednesday, the 28th /Pacers Bowl. We'll be back tomorrow with Michael Scotto, NBA insider for Hoopside, talking Pacers at the trade deadline. Really looking forward to that. Scotto is the best. And then, of course, the Pacers play again. The podcast after that. Thank you all so much for listening today. You can find me on social media at Tony Easton, this podcast at Locked On Pacers. Back tomorrow, talking more Pacers.